Last year we created a new lake, along with a dozen other wetland features, all in an effort to improve the conditions of this abandoned quarry and to turn it into a sanctuary for wildlife. And 1 year later, the results are fascinating.
This place is just teeming with life. It's full of aquatic plants in the new wet habitats. There are frogs singing, there are baby salamanders in the water, there are dragonflies in the air, and overall it's just this feeling, especially in this season right now, that life is booming here. It's just incredible to see this transformation in such a short period of time.
Today I want to show you 4 very interesting places, as well as the new and unique species that we found in each one. 2 of these areas we transformed with last year's interventions, and then there are 2 new areas which we are investigating for the first time this year to see if they need some work, including the desolate Big Blue Lake and these mysterious twin ponds, which somehow have completely different habitats. But before we get into that, let's quickly recap the timeline of this project. In 2021, this abandoned quarry changed owners and was put under the management of our good friends at Rewilding Portugal. Then the next year was spent on cleanups and surveys, including some very useful eDNA sampling, which we supported. This helped inform the Earth movements, which started in the fall of 2022 and were done by the spring of 2023, and these new areas were created. As a reminder, the 2 main goals of this work were to increase the size and variety of the flooded areas, to essentially expand this rare wetland habitat, and to hold water here for longer during the dry seasons. And to understand whether we have achieved our aims, the best thing is to go up high and take a look at the bigger picture.
So we're here at the quarry and we're going to be doing some drone mapping to see what areas are flooding and any changes that might be happening to the vegetation. So yeah, let's get the drone up in the air.
Tiago programmed the drone to take hundreds of photos, which he then stitches together in a single picture. And over time, we can see a lot of change. This was the original state of things in 2022. And these are the areas we intervened to block water, which runs in this general direction. And this was the immediate aftermath of the interventions, a very different landscape.
So before we started our project, this whole area here was completely dry. It was pretty barren. And we then created this barrier pretty much, where I'm standing on, more or less. And water started to accumulate here, but it was still kind of bald. There were no plants, no vegetation. But as you can see, right now, it's just teeming with aquatic plants that are creating this lovely 3-dimensional habitat.
Then came the new area we've been calling a lake, as well as all of this water which accumulated here and here, really increasing the water level in some parts.
Here behind me, we can see a bit of a tree graveyard, because all of these willows used to line the previous watercourse, because of course willows love water. But when eventually this area flooded and the water became permanent, it became year-round, the willows started to die because they don't like to be underwater all year. And that was expected. It's a consequence of our work. So it was not a surprise, and it's not a negative consequence of the work either, because all along the shore here, new young willows are already popping up, and they'll eventually dominate this, much like they were dominating the previous shoreline as well.
And finally, some of this water floods this flatter area off to the side.
And here on the other side of the barrier, we have the temporary part of all of these temporary ponds, and it's really interesting to see. So this area here would have been flooded a few weeks ago when the water level was at its highest, because it still has some plants that are some aquatic plants that are clinging on. And then we have this little pond here, which is still full of water and disconnected from the main area.
So for the first full year after the interventions, we can say that the flooding objectives have been met, but the impact this has on the ground can be harder to measure, which is why the team at Rewilding Portugal continues to monitor all of the wildlife that uses this place by conducting regular surveys.
The idea here is not only to register as much of the existing biodiversity as possible, but also to be able to compare in subsequent years the changes that we see. That's why some of these transits are focused in the areas that we are doing more active work in, so we can see that if our conservation actions will be successful or not.
And they found a lot of very interesting species to add to the list of this repository of biodiversity. But one crucial piece of the puzzle was still missing: the aquatic plant life, which is where Claudia and Udo come into the picture. They are a botanical power couple that we connected with for our work in the south of Portugal, in the Mira Basin. So we contracted them to come and survey the quarry, focusing specifically on all the interesting aquatic plants.
The wetland environment is a place where we have sometimes with a lot of water and sometimes with less water. So a lot of plants are adapted to this special regime of water and no water or less water. Where I am here, water has disappeared, and we see a plant which is called Illizebrum, forming a type of carpet, and it's flowering. The white things are the flowers, the green are the leaves, and you see it's making a carpet on more or less dry land. But when we have an environment on site where we still have water, as you can see, because my valleys are getting very wet, the plant is able to thrive as well, and flowering, it's living, and the whole carpet is lifted up by the water and can swim.
To help them search for the plants, they also brought along Jael, who is familiar with pretty much every aquatic plant in Portugal. And with this crack team assembled, they started by surveying this beautiful new area we created, and which we actually have not featured in these videos yet. It is over here on the opposite end of the quarry and only has a minor intervention, which was essentially blocking a ditch here, allowing a lot more water to accumulate. But the results were fantastic. This created a lovely wet meadow, full of life.
For a lot of people, this is a puddle, a pot of water and some weed. No, it is full of life and full of biodiversity.
We had a great time finding all sorts of different aquatic plants that have made this their home, and it was also really nice to see all the dragonflies flying about and the various frogs, such as this Iberian tree frog, taking advantage of the vegetation to hunt for insects.
It just baffles me sometimes what a little bit of extra work can do to really bring a place to life, to bring a little bit extra opportunity for nature. And these wet meadows here are the product of that effort. It's, yeah, wow. It's truly special.
Rewilding this place has been a real team effort. You have Rewilding Portugal that has been working in this region for years and identified this place as a unique opportunity. And then they managed to find someone with vision who bought the land and let them manage it for biodiversity's sake. And then there's us. We've been able to come in with additional funding for these interventions. And if you're a Mossy Earth member, you are part of this chain, you're part of this work. This is one of the many wonderful wetland habitats that you've helped create with the more or less 40,000 pounds that we have spent here so far. And if you're not yet a member, but you like what you see, then please consider joining us with a monthly subscription at mossy.earth. It is truly what makes it all possible. Our coral restoration work, our river rewilding projects, our seagrass and oyster restoration efforts, and even the land we are protecting and rewilding with local indigenous communities in the Amazon rainforest. You can learn more about it here on this YouTube channel, and when you've seen enough to consider joining us, you can do so at mossy.earth. Now, the work that this team is doing here extends further than just cataloging. We think we've found something that is new to science, which Udo was really keen for me to film.
See these star-like leaves coming up.
Yeah.
This is the one, the gallium I showed you flowering over there, and told you that we have discovered it can be a hydrophyte, and here you have it.
It was quite hard to film them in amongst all the dense aquatic plant life, but here it is. This is the first record that we are aware of gallium debile flowering underwater. Pretty cool stuff. And this is one of the many interesting findings that Claudia, Udo and Jael made here. In total, they were able to catalog 94 species of aquatic plants, including 7 rare species, one of which was not seen in Portugal since 1942, as well as 3 red-listed species, 2 of which we found in the mysterious twin ponds we've been wanting to investigate. So I went in for a dive to bring back some samples and also to have a look around. The pond you see on your right side is dark and full of nutrients, and diving in it felt like quite the haunting experience because there is very little light down there, and the water was also cooler because of the low light penetration. While the other pond is bright and clear, the aquatic plants form this forest-like habitat full of these lovely marbled newts taking advantage of this place to hunt and to grow. But crucially for us, this place was also full of rare plants which have adapted specifically to live in these nutrient-poor waters. We have Liturella uniflora, which is an amphibious shoreweed capable of living in and out of the water. And then we have Utricularia australis, or the less appealing name of southern bladderwort. And this plant strategy is completely different. It has no roots and floats around, sometimes getting stuck in other vegetation. This means that it gets no nutrients from the ground, but has instead adapted to get its nourishment by catching little animals. Yes, this is a carnivorous plant that catches small creatures using vacuum bladders activated by small contact hairs.
The trap is an opening, and the vacuum which was in is filling with water, and the plankton, the zooplankton, is caught by the plant. This one has eaten something, because you see when the traps are dark, they have had a success.
What a great find, and when you put it into context of the known distribution of this plant, it is a very unique result, as it is by far the most inland record of this species in the country.
It is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I can imagine why Udo was saying you could do a doctorate, a hydrobiology doctorate here, because every single pond is just different from the next.
We have so many different situations with different conditions, like in the geological underground, but as well different forms, different because of the excavation. It is man-made habitat, but now nature is coming to occupy the place, and depending of the possibilities, it has a different expression,
different approach.
Yeah.
And all this botanical goodness can be found in the 55-page report that Udo and Claudia wrote about these surveys. And I've been using it to make this video as accurately as I can. And if you're a member, then you will be able to access this in your account. But we also wanted to take a look at another area where we knew things would probably be quite different. This is what we call the Big Blue Lake, and as it is indeed quite big, Udo and Claudia organized for a team of divers to join us in order to collect the samples more easily. But after deploying the ROV, it quickly became clear that we did not need to go very deep to find our answers.
2.4 meters.
Max.
2.4 meters max. Bottom flat, full of mud.
After experiencing the wet meadow and the ponds, this place felt like a sad desert, punctuated by the occasional cloud of silt kicking up from the bottom. And of course, I had my suspicions of what this might be. And on the walls, I found what I was looking for. These holes are home to the Louisiana crayfish, or as they would call it in Louisiana, crawfish. And I'm sure these are lovely animals in that distant place where they come from, but here they're an invasive species, and they're a pain to deal with. They are certainly one of the factors which keep this whole area in an early stage of succession, as the only thing we found at the bottom were macroalgae. But after Jael and the divers completed their surveys, we did find another red-listed species living on the edges of the lake, called Potamogeton trichoides, commonly known as hair-like pondweed. This was a nice silver lining, but this crayfish problem is serious, and it also extends to some of the areas we are trying to restore.
So here you can well and truly see the crayfish invasion that we have here. Just along this this shoreline here, we can see, I don't know, 100, 200 crayfish just openly chilling.
I think they could be more aggressive. Like, they're not like grabbing on so tightly. Like, I think they're strong.
So you think they're just checking out your finger?
Yeah, I think so.
Giving you a handshake.
Giving me a handshake.
Well, nice that they are friendly, but maybe they could get out of here.
Yeah, maybe they could go back to where they came from.
And in this area here, you can see a place where expanding the water has led to an unwanted consequence: the destruction of these ponds by fish and crayfish that are present in the larger body of water.
The animals, especially the fish, probably entered here, and the crayfish as well, and the result is a huge degradation in this pond.
So not every intervention has always that's what happens also sometimes when you intervene. You also
It happens.
Can have negative results.
What I can't say if it was planned to take away part of the dike
or accidental. Yeah.
Luckily, we do have some nice before and after photos, which allow us to do some forensic work. Looking at this, I am quite sure that the connection came about because of the extra flooding caused by the barrier built at the bottom of this large area, which blocked a lot more water, helping flood all of these areas to create a smoother profile, which is nice, but also flooding the ponds which existed here. So based on my conversations with Udo and Claudia and the Rewilding Portugal team, I think I can confidently rate the results of our interventions as follows. The wet meadow creation and expansion was a resounding success. The shallow water here and the lake have attracted a lot of biodiversity, and we even found the carnivorous plant growing in the lake area, which is really exciting, and the only other place where we found it besides the twin ponds, so this place gets a positive grade as well. Then the regular flooding of this area here, creating the temporary ponds, is also positive, as is the smoothing of the profile here, creating a gradient of opportunity with different depths. And then we have the negative result over here, with the destruction of the ephemeral pond.
It's very good what you have done here. The crayfish, yes, is a problem. On the other side, we know that the otter and bigger birds like herons and storks are hunting crayfish, and we should as well because they are very delicious.
Dinner.
Yes, and it's really
Rewilding dinner.
And I can tell you what you have to do with the trap, because when you use the stockings from nylon, what the ladies have, and then you put in the stockfish, the Portuguese stockfish. I think it's stockfish in English, and then you put some honey. And then at dawn, or no, at night, you place it in the water. And then comes the crayfish, because he's mad for stockfish, and with his scissors, he will stick in the stockings. And then you lift it up and you have your dinner of crayfish.
Wow.
It's working.
Maybe next time, next time in the quarry, that we'll cook some invasive crayfish dinner. I mean, this pondscape just never ceases to amaze me. What a special, weird and wonderful place that we have here. And it's above all really cool that with a few small interventions we were able to enhance it. I'm really pleased to see the results of our interventions, and also really happy that we get Udo, Claudia and Jael to come and have a look at the aquatic plant life to validate our work. It's really important, and we'll of course continue informing the next steps of the work. But for now, I just want to say, as usual, a huge thank you to our members that enabled us to do this kind of work. And if you're not yet a member, then please consider becoming one at mossy.earth. We do all sorts of really cool rewilding projects similar to this one, and I think you're gonna have fun, but above all, with just a small amount every month, you'll be having a real positive impact, and I think that's really amazing. So again, a big thank you to you all. Until next time, cheers.